I love video games and always have. Some of my earliest memories involve them. Sitting on the cold floor playing Super Mario Bros. On the NES with my sister. Or playing Pokemon Stadium against my dad on the Nintendo 64. I'll never forget the day he picked me up from nursery and was excited because he managed to beat Sabrina. We just couldn't beat her. She was impossible. Then we got a GameCube. For me, this was my first true console, and I loved it. Even though I didn't understand you needed to buy memory cards so that you could save your progress on them, I just left the GameCube on for days so that I wouldn't lose any progress. After that was the Xbox, and the Game Boy, then the PSP, then the DS, then the Wii, then the 3DS, then the PlayStation 3, then the PlayStation 4, then the Switch. Then I went back and bought older consoles, Xbox 360, PlayStation 2, the PS Vita, anything I could get my hands on. And all the games I got. Oh, the games. I had so many. I can't even tell you how many I had. And each one of those games was a unique adventure unto itself. I would cry, I would laugh, I would get thrilled, I would get disappointed. And even after all this time, 24 years later, after I first held a controller, I still love video games. There is no other medium like it. Music, movies, books, all inferior. Because anything you can experience in those, you can experience in a video game first hand. You may disagree with this, as it is my opinion. But at the very least, you can see just how passionate I am about them. Which is why it breaks my heart to see where it's all going these days. As of the time I am writing this, it has been one day since the Nintendo's Switch 2 reveal. And oh boy, was it something. But even before that, there was the PS5 Pro and that reveal. Then there's the Xbox and its continual decline. But that's not even mentioning the rest of the industry as a whole and what's going on in it. What happened? The inevitable. That's what. May sound strange considering how simple it all used to feel and how greedy and corrupt it is now. But think of it like this. They make us games, and we buy the games for money. See, money was always a part of the equation, but that wasn't really a problem back in the day, because gaming was a small niche for weirdos and nerds that was shunned by the mainstream media. But our niche slowly grew until it became a juggernaut that surpassed the movie and music industries combined. And along the way, from niche to worldwide sensation, they noticed. Shareholders, suits, fat cats, call them wherever you want. I don't care.
That is one big pile of shit.
But they noticed, and they wanted a piece of that pie. So they wormed their way in like they do. They sat themselves in positions of power, positions that can dictate the course of the company. This on its own isn't so bad. But what is bad is that they don't care about the products. They only want more money, whatever the cost may be. But what is that cost? The cost is the employees, the product, and the company as a whole. Let me explain. The shareholders don't actually know how to run the company, so they need someone to do it for them, while they sit back and let the money come to them instead. The CEO they appoint needs to make this line go up If it stays the same, that's bad. And if it goes down, that's even worse. That's the CEO's job now, keeping investors happy by making the line go up. This practice is called maximizing shareholder value. And how do they do this? By making good products? Not enough. What if they added extra incentives to entice customers to spend more money? Let's call them microtransactions, DLCs, season passes, deluxe editions, day one editions, collector's editions, expansion pass, loot boxes, games as a service, and more to be announced. Who cares that these inclusions harm the product overall? We made money. But that's not enough. We need more monies. And now that the product has been released and the financial quarter is coming up, let's release a few hundred employees or maybe a few thousand employees into the wild. That way we don't have to spend money on their wages. So it looks like we made more by comparison. Genius! Who cares that we just burned our customers and employees? What's that? These heartless money-grabbing tactics aren't sustainable for the company long-term and the line will go down? Say no more. We can acquire smaller companies to boost our productivity. In the meantime, we can have them working on some game or another until they can't any longer. That way, we can use the failure as an excuse to transfer the equipment and the IPs to us, shut down the smaller studio, take the employees we need, fire the other employees. That way we can keep our productivity high. It's genius! What? This also isn't sustainable long term? And our company is currently facing financial strain due to poor customer satisfaction, lack of talented employees, and terrible long-term business decisions? Well, no worries. My successor will handle it. I'm leaving. You may be thinking, why would a CEO run a company like that? To anyone with a brain, it's a bad idea. Growth that fast is unsustainable. Just look at Elon Musk and Tesla right now. Fast rising stocks balance out one way or another. And if an idiot like me can see that, surely a multi-millionaire CEO can. And yes, they can. But why would they do it? For two reasons. The first, if the CEO doesn't, the shareholders will have them replaced. And the second, they're in on it. The CEOs get a thing called a job bonus. These job bonuses are larger than their annual wages. From a CEO's perspective, all they need to do is keep the shareholders happy for a few years, then they're set for life. By the time the CEO retires, the shareholders will have moved on to other companies to repeat the process. That leaves the company as a dried out husk. And it's the next CEO's job to fix the husk. That way, they can drain it of more resources and money for the next shareholders. Rinse and repeat until the company goes bankrupt or a bigger company comes along and buys it out to drain it of resources and money. That's how business works these days. It's a legal pyramid scheme. A pyramid scheme that's run by scumbags like Andrew Wilson and Bobby Kotick. These creatures don't care about the industry. They don't care about the product. They don't care about the customers. For them, it's a way of funneling money upwards and making a big profit out of it. And you know who really suffers from all this? It's not us. It's the employees. For you see, in the beginning, the kinds of people that worked in the game industry were eccentrics and people that failed to get into the film industry. But that's not the case anymore. The people that work on games nowadays are those like us that grew up around video games. They, like us, played Mario Kart, Pokemon, Sonic, or maybe they were into Call of Duty. And through these experiences with those games, they wanted to make something like those games, to give back to the thing they love. They go study, spend years on it, and finally get there. After all the effort, after all the sleepless nights, it was worth it. They get to work for EA now, for BioWare, for Blizzard, for Rockstar, for Take-Two. And they get treated like shit for it. Years-long crunch time, unpaid overtime, frat bro culture, sexual harassment, constant exhaustion, minimum wage, office politics. And if you don't fit in with those office politics, you get kicked out. And if you don't want to go through any of those things, well, we can just kick you out and find someone else to replace you. Because after all, working on video games is a dream job. And if you're not interested in doing the work, someone else will, because it's a dream job. And even if they can endure all these things, they can still get fired through no fault of their own, due to the CEO wanting to make the profits look bigger during the next financial quarter to satisfy the shareholders. These greedy bastards use the hopes and dreams of the young to line their own pockets, then throw them away. It's sick, like the end of a deal with a devil. But why do I care now all of a sudden? After all, this has been common knowledge for years at this point. A quick Google search will prove it. And it's not that I don't care or didn't care. I have always cared, and I have always done my part as an individual. The last time I bought an EA game was Mass Effect Andromeda. Because after this point, EA went insane with their microtransactions. You remember Battlefront 2, don't you? Last time I bought a Bethesda game was Fallout 4. Because after Fallout 4, the quality of Bethesda's games never changed. Fallout 76 and Starfield, even Fallout 4, is essentially Skyrim. There's no value. The last time I bought a Ubisoft game was Far Cry Primal, because I noticed it was essentially a reskin of Far Cry 3 with a caveman paint job. Of course, I don't have that game anymore because I didn't want it and I gave it to a friend. But that's what I've always done. If a company does something that I don't respect or approve on, I vote with my wallet. And perhaps one man's boycott isn't enough from your perspective, but I don't live in a country with a major video game corporation to join protests against. But I digress. The reason I'm making this video is because of the announcement of the Switch 2. And due to that announcement, I've lost all hope for the video game industry going forwards. In case you've been living under a rock and you haven't seen it, and you've somehow found this channel to inform you about it, the Switch 2 will cost $449.99. That's for a handheld, with the games being priced from $80 to $90. Or where I live, it will cost $469.99, $90 to $100. This is a crazy precedent. People have been talking about $100 games for a while now, thanks to GTA 6, and it's all but official now, thanks to Nintendo. Nintendo was the only console company I still held hope for after the PlayStation 5 Pro's reveal trailer last year. No way was I going to buy a console with no disk drive that was closer to 1,000 than 500. And for what? There's no games on PlayStation 5. That's why I don't have a regular PlayStation 5. There's no incentive to buy one. And don't even get me started on the Xbox. 90 to 100 for any game is a hard sale. No, forget games. Any one item that costs between 90 to 100 isn't a normal item. That is a luxury item, and you don't just buy that anymore. But of course, there's always those that are going to say,
if you factor in inflation, a new Nintendo 64 game in the year 1998 worth $50 would cost $97.83 in today's money. If you take all this information into account, then video games going forward are in fact going to be cheaper than games used to be by $7.83.
Those are some incredibly wise words, and are in fact true. And I think I speak for all of us here when I say, go f*** yourself! The prices may have risen to match the inflation, but you know what hasn't? Our wages! Buying power-wise, we are poorer than back then. And you want to sit on your high horse and defend this bullshit while you speak down to us? Fuck you. Can you imagine little Timmy going to his parents and asking them for a video game for his birthday when they can spend that amount of money for an entire week's worth of food? Oh, sorry. What am I saying? Everything is more expensive now. I meant half a week. Gaming is dead. But there's some stupid people out there that think because of the new outrageous prices that microtransactions, DLCs, season passes, deluxe editions, day one editions are a thing of the past. Stupid. Those prices, those new prices, are not going to be enough to satisfy a bottomless pit that's called a shareholder. They can, they will, and they have the leverage to implement them. Don't believe me? I can prove it. Ever heard of the Pokemon franchise? It's only the most profitable franchise ever. Take this into consideration. Pokemon Sword and Shield released 6 years ago. Let's say a 4-year-old kid at the time got it as a birthday present. That kid is now 10 years old. That means that kid has nostalgic memories of those games, as forgettable as they were. From that kid's perspective, anything associated with those games was normal. And do you know what Sword and Shield had in them? Expansion passes. Microtransactions are normal to kids these days. But if you're from my generation, you know they aren't. I can promise you that in my first Pokemon games, Gold and Silver, there were no microtransactions, or in the games after that. Of course, Nintendo always did release 2 of them, so they were always scummy, but that's besides the point. We are like frogs sitting in a pot that is slowly boiling. But we're not idiots. We can tell the water is getting hotter, but those dumb brats can't. They were born in boiling water. To them, it's natural. And our kind will die out one day. And that's what gaming's future will be left to. But you shouldn't be angry with them. You should pity them. These dumb brats will never know what it's like to have a complete gaming experience ever. They will never know what it's like to stand in front of a shelf in a game store and file through all the games with their fingers. The car ride home, where you sit in the back of the car and you're opening the box and going through all the cool things in it. The leaflets, sometimes there's posters, there's catalogs with other games. They will never know what it was like to sit there and play the game from start to finish as it was intended, without being badgered by the game itself for some asinine cosmetic for $9.99. The young gamer will never know any of this. They will never know what it meant to have value. Some of them have never even held a physical game before. That's why we should pity them. They don't stand a chance against the greedy suits. That's why microtransactions aren't going anywhere. Not when they already have the next generation in the palm of their hands. All because they never knew anything else. Do you want my advice with this whole 90 to 100 for a game thing? If a game comes out and it has that price tag attached to it, it needs to be excellent. You need to go over it with a microscope. And if it doesn't satisfy, don't buy it. Wait for reviews and see. But this is already going on right now, before the price ups, and the CEOs don't like it. They want us to buy factory-lined corporate slop and like it. But we can't let that happen. Because if this price up situation happened even a year ago, the kinds of games that would get that price tag are Skull and Bones, Slip and Slide Squad, Dragon Age, The Veilguard, and Concord. None of those games are worth that much. Of course, if you want to play those games, well, first of all, why would you? And second of all, there's always another option, though I don't condone it.
That's got to be the best part I've ever seen. So it would seem.
Though, all that being said, the price up is only half my problem. The other half also has to do with the Switch 2 reveal. No. You know what? I like this even less. Because at the end of the day, I can always save up a bit longer to buy a video game. But this next problem, I can't do shit about. And I'm the only one that seems to care about it. Physical games are officially dead. They just don't know about it yet. Physical games have been on a decline for years now. And as much as I hate that, I understand it. It's just so convenient. You start your console, go into the store, choose a game, download it in 10 to 30 minutes. Then you're playing the game without even having to set foot outside of your front door. Why should we care about physical games anyway? They're just so inconvenient. They clutter the place and I have to speak to some guy, social activity, just to get one. Well, have you ever thought of this? Game sizes these days are gigantic. You can only have space for about 10 of them before you need to make more space for a new game. That means you have to delete one from your old games. Well, what's the problem with that? You can just re-download it from the store. And since you've already bought it, it's free. What happens when the servers go down? It costs money to keep them going. You think a corporation will run something at a loss when they can just cut it off and save on profits? That's what happened to the Xbox 360 servers in 2024. That's what happened to the Wii and the 3DS servers in 2023. It takes a while, but once they're gone, they're gone. But that's no problem with a physical game. What's that? You feel like playing 1984's Excite Bike and you still have the cartridge and NES in good condition? Well, that's great! What's that? You want to play Pokemon Rumble U on the Wii U, a digital-only game that never got its own cartridge or disc? Say no more, friend. Go on the Wii U store and download it. I even heard it's free. Oh. You may think I'm exaggerating, but I'm not. If anything, I'm understating how bad it's gotten. 87% of all older classical games just don't exist anymore. This has gotten so bad that non-profit video game preservation societies exist, and their whole goal is to try and keep these older games in an active state to be playable the way they were supposed to be played without any need of emulators. But their efforts are being thwarted.
Stop! You violated the law. Pay the court a fine or serve your sentence. Your stolen goods are now forfeit.
But by who, you may be asking? Who would do that? By the video game companies whose games they're trying to preserve. Madness! Why would they do such a thing? After all, they don't even make those games anymore. Shouldn't they be happy someone is trying to preserve their legacy for them? It all goes back to the beginning of the video. Making the line go up and money, money, money. Sure, they're not making these games anymore, but one day if the demand gets big enough, they could remake them for money later. That's why video game preservation gets beaten down, so that they can have it in their back pocket for later. And with the Switch 2 reveal, that just got worse. The Switch 2 is going to have a so-called game key card, a physical cartridge that when placed in the Switch 2 will download the game off the internet, like how you download games off of game stores. In case you're slow, that means you don't own your video games anymore. You own a download code. But Nintendo wasn't the first ones to do this. Xbox has been going digital for years now, and PlayStation pretty much revealed its entire hand when it made the PS5 both digital and physical. Then the PlayStation 5 Pro was digital with an add-on disk drive. It was intentional. They want physical games to die so they have more control over the product as a whole. You all made fun of Ubisoft's CEO for saying that, but I saw those words for what they were. He wasn't talking about the future. He was talking about now. It's already happening. And if you can't see the problem with that, you and I can't be friends. But let me put it like this for you. Do you remember a couple of years ago when the entire mainstream media gathered together to push this scam called NFTs? That digital-only art that was supposed to make you a millionaire? And you all made fun of them for it? Because at the end of the day, they didn't own the art. They owned a download code. Doesn't that sound familiar? You morons are the same. You don't own your video games any more than they own the NFTs. And it was Nintendo that ushered all of this in. I started with Nintendo. I had some naive hope that they would be different from Xbox and PlayStation. That they would understand the value of the physical. That they understood the value of physical goods. Because it's Nintendo. They've always been about physical goods. And if that stayed the case, I could go on. But I was wrong. So wrong. After all, if games don't need to be physical, they can save money on production costs. Video game retailers also want a cut of the profits. And since it's released on their own digital storefronts, they don't have to give them a cut of the profits. Really, it's a no-brainer that they would want to do this. Where does that leave us now? Now the PlayStation is an expensive brick with no games. Xbox has basically surrendered, and Nintendo has lost their minds. Some people think PC is the answer. And I do agree, PC is the best way to experience games right now. What with their superior specs and their massive library of games thanks to Steam and Epic. But there's only two small problems with PC. A decent PC costs between 800 to 1,000, and that's for a decent one. The good ones cost between 2,500 to 4,000. It would cost you an arm and a leg to get one. And that's not even the best part. These high-end PCs will only be considered high-end for 3 to 5 years before the technology outgrows them. You could always just buy the parts to upgrade them every now and again, if you want to keep up with all that, that is. I just feel sorry for your wallet. And for years, that's been the one major advantage that consoles held over the PC, despite its advantages, the simplicity of it. Until we got the modern consoles and they need to get replaced halfway through their life cycle now with pro versions. Now they're no different. But whatever. Maybe you don't consider that a problem with PCs. Maybe you just have deeper pockets than I do. But this next problem is definitely a problem. You don't own your games on PC, and you never have. What you have been buying are download codes. They can also ban you whenever they feel like it. There are horror stories out there of gamers with dozens of games getting their accounts banned. All that money and hours upon hours spent worth nothing. That's why I've never invested in a PC before, despite the clear advantages. It wasn't a good choice for me. But there are no good choices anymore. Fuck me for wanting to own my games. We can't even count on video game legislation either. Most politicians in control these days are old. When video games first started to make an appearance in the 80s, they were already in their 40s. For them, it's new age hippie stuff. It doesn't matter. Not like the noble art of movie making. Now there's a respectable industry. And anyway, why would they side with us when they could side with the corporations? After all, money. I've lost all hope, and I don't see it getting any better either. I dread for the future. Where is this gonna go? $2,000 consoles? $300 games? For what? Corporate slop? That you don't even own? Well, who knows? Maybe one day someone new will come along and shake things up for the better. Probably not. What do you think of all that? Am I the crazy one? Whatever. Video's over. But you know, if video games are getting more expensive now, and you can't own them either, doesn't that leave us with only the third option? But of course, I don't condone it.